We now proceed back to the agenda on number 7A3, report regarding security fencing options for McAllen High School, McAllen Memorial High School, and James Nicky Real High School. Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. Dr. Barrera and Mr. Trevino will report on plans to upgrade or replace security fencing at each of our comprehensive high schools, and they're here to present to us.
Good evening, everyone, again, and we've got Ruben Trevino here. He's our Executive Director for Facilities Maintenance and Operations. And let me begin by saying that it is a practice of Facilities and Maintenance Operations Department to periodically look at the facilities that serve our students. And when it comes down to it, we also look at one of the things would be the fencing. And so we bring this report, and Mr. Trevino is going to speak to some of the options that we're thinking about when we talk about security fencing around our comprehensive high schools. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Trevino.
Yes, currently right now we're putting together a bid document. We're looking at two different types of fencing for the high schools, either a combination or one by itself. The two types, it would be your typical chain link fencing, 6 foot, that we currently have in the back areas of our campuses. And in the front areas, we're looking at a ornamental iron fence, something to what you see that the city has put up. You'll see some of the fencing directly south here by the water tower from this room.
Not to be
And,
fan of wire.
And that's pretty much what we're looking at as far as 6 foot in the front of the three high schools. Over at Rowe, just to give you an overview, we're looking at approximately 580 linear feet that would go with the ornamental fence in the front of the campus. At McKay, we're looking at about 700 to 720 linear feet that goes in front of the campus. And at Memorial, we're looking at about 1,100 because Memorial has that front corner that has two main streets in front. The total linear footage for Rowe, we're looking at about 2,500 feet of a combination chain link and ornamental iron. And McKay would only take the ornamental iron in front. The rest of it is already fenced with currently with chain link. And Memorial would only take the ornamental iron as well. The pricing, more or less right now, from what I've gathered, on the chain link, you're looking at about $10 to $12 a linear foot installed. And on the ornamental iron, anywhere between $38 to $45 a linear foot. Now, that will also include, that price includes the fencing, and the gates are priced separately. So we're looking at quite a bit of rolling gates as well on all the drives that we currently have in the front. Now, how this came about is Dr. Gonzalez, Dr. Barrera, Chief Esquivel, and myself went out there, drove every single campus, and determined the areas that would help us provide a safer environment for our kids. And that is how we came about with this linear footage up to now.
I have a question.
Are you done with your presentation, Mr. Trevino? Trustee Forina.
Being most familiar with Rowe High School, where would we use the fencing in the back? Because I think that's pretty secure if we were to just close the gates.
The fencing at Rowe that we're proposing is on the north side of Rowe. You would come from the fine arts area with the ornamental fencing, past the R, all the way to the bus drive.
Chain fencing.
No. Ornamental,
Okay,
which is
but
all the front.
I was.
And then the chain link would go all the way to the front corner by Ware Road, go south on Ware, and come right up to the student parking lot, which is a band practice area. Currently, if you go out there, we've already, our electrical department installed a utility pole that we met with AP, and they required a certain size utility pole that's already installed. And we're looking at putting a new guard shack in that area to control all the traffic going through that south drive. And we couldn't put the fence any closer because whenever they have their practice fire drills, they use all that front area to stay away from the building.
So essentially what we want to do is fence off the front portion in between Rowe and Benson, in between Rowe and the bus drop-off area. Between Ware Road and the bus drop-off area, that second entrance, if you're going
Yes,
west on Warrior Drive, there's that one entrance and exit, and then there's the second one where the buses go in. We want to put a fence from there to Ware Road and across.
yes, sir.
I don't want to duplicate the process, but I think if we were to shut that west gate on Warrior Drive and shut the south gate, we would probably resolve the same issue, wouldn't we?
Well,
We're also, if I may, sir.
Yes.
We're also trying to prevent students from walking off campus. So we want the entire perimeter of the school to be fenced off.
Or better yet, having someone walk onto campus.
Or, yes, on or off.
Okay.
as I understood it from the discussion we had earlier this morning, you're doing these weekly reviews of monitoring of facilities. You're touring all the campuses,
Yes, sir.
including the 4 high schools and the early college campus as well, as I understand. And what you were finding, these campuses are closed campuses, and yet throughout the day you were seeing individuals coming on and off. And you had no way of knowing if they were students or not, or what business they had. And if they were leaving, they weren't in class, and parents were expecting them to be in class, and that was a concern.
Yes, sir.
What's the timeline again, Ms.?
Currently, right now, we're looking to go out for bids, hopefully have a purchase order in place by the mid to end of October. The lead time on that particular fencing is about 4 to 6 weeks. And in speaking with different vendors, just to gauge the pricing to establish a budget, we would probably be looking at project completion sometime in the December, January months.
I have a couple of quick, you done?
Yes.
I have a couple of
Yes, sir,
questions.
trustees.
Ruben, on that type of fencing, how many square feet or linear feet did you say you were looking at?
Linear feet on
For
that.
all 3 campuses?
On that one total, you've got 700, 1,100, and 600.
2,400?
About 2,400,
And that was at $35 a square foot?
give or take, yes, plus the gates,
A linear foot.
a linear
Yeah,
foot.
so that's about 85,000, right? I think. And then the other one was $12 a square foot?
Yes, sir.
And
Linear
how-
foot.
Linear foot, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
And how many linear feet on that one you looking at?
You'd probably be looking in the neighborhood of around 2,000, 1,900 to 2,000 linear feet.
Times $12, what is that? 24? So
24,000.
About 100,000, right?
Yes,
More or less?
Grand
And that doesn't include the gates?
exactly.
Let me ask you this. So what are you looking at for the gates at those facilities? Just somebody has to go up and pull those gates open and close them?
And the gates at this point, in some of those entry points, would have to be a combination of a roll gate and a swing gate, especially some of the areas where you have buses coming through, and where we don't have room for a second roll gate.
Right. So somebody would have the responsibility of going out there and,
Just like the gates that you see behind Row or at Memorial now, you see all gates closed on weekends or at night. It just, matter of coordination of who closes everything at the end and who opens first thing in the morning.
and that's on the weekends. How is it, what's the process during the school day? At a certain point, does somebody go out there and close those gates?
Our police officers go out and secure all the gates after classes have started.
Okay.
Well, the plan is, and it's already started, but based on board direct approval of a recommendation, are the huts. You've been refurbishing those.
Yes,
And the plan is to have a police officer, which the board has already approved 2, at those locations. And right now, just what's happening is the gates are locked for the high schools, and the custodian is called at a certain time, usually around 3, because students are going to their work study afterwards. And that's what's already happening now. With the police officers there, as I understand it from Chief, the police officer will be the one to open the gate, because he'll already be there, and making sure there's a reason for them to leave and come back. And then, as I understand it from talking to Dr. Gonzalez before the meeting, because I asked that same question Trustee Esparza is asking, is that there'd be another officer at the main entrance of the schools to also students coming and going at that gate level and
Yes.
monitoring that, as I understand it.
Yes, sir. That's the vision, to control traffic via vehicle and to control foot traffic, 2 points of entry.
I will tell you, in traveling around the state back in 2014, and most recently when I was near at Donna High School, there was an officer at the gate in 4 of those school districts out of the 10 I saw, and they would ask, what's your business here, before they even let you get in the parking lot and get out of your car. Is that a thought here? Is that what we're looking at for vehicle traffic?
That's the idea.
Yes, sir.
If I might add along those same lines, certain schools, they also at the shack, they have the ability to run your ID. Are we looking at doing that potentially down the road?
That would be in the near future, to where
Okay.
we would be able to run the necessary means to be able to,
Data
the
lines.
data lines and fiber
Okay.
to those areas.
You said the shack at Rural High Schools. I've seen the other shacks at Memorial and Mackay. They're
Memorial
functional.
and Mackay are pretty much complete
And the
already.
one at Row needs to be, you said, be rebuilt again.
The one at Row
When
is
are we
gonna-
improving that?
Yes, the one at Row is going to be demoed, and we're constructing a new one to be placed over where the new location's going to be.
What's your timeline on that?
We're probably looking at another 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to putting the guard check out. And right now, AEP gave us a timeline of about 14 days to go in and run the new power.
To actually build it? How long do you think it'll take?
We're probably about 2 weeks away.
And to bring clarity to Trustee Esparza, I actually interrupted, and I apologize. You still have the floor, Trustee Esparza.
The shacks, Mr. Alvarado was talking about, but those are to monitor student parking lots, right?
Yes.
What would you do, like at Memorial, where it's right there in front, where you have parents coming throughout the day, auxiliary staff coming throughout the day? How will they be able to get in and out if you close those gates? And if you don't close them, then really, what have we solved? Because the kids could just walk out and
In what was discussed in our tours of the different schools, we'll take one by one. Let's say Memorial High School.
Okay.
The front of the school would have an officer, so you have the visitor parking in the front. So you walk in and you'd have an officer there. Where the guard check is at, that's to prevent anybody driving behind the school up to the athletic area or the teacher parking lots to the north of the campus, in between the fields
Right.
and the Kate buildings. So that officer would control any traffic going through there, which is, it's already in place. If you go to Mackay,
But going back to there at Memorial, so you're saying you'd have an officer have to be stationed all day long there in the front of the campus at Memorial?
that is what the plans are, eventually to have them rotating through the front of the school.
Because if you close those gates, then it's making it a problem for parents, auxiliary staff to come in
Exactly.
and out, right?
Yes. On the Mackay campus, you have the guard shack inside the student parking area.
Right.
But you've got 2 16-foot gates that align with the drive coming in
Right.
versus going through the drive that's adjacent to the
lot.
building. Though now the drive would be established to come through the hut. So the only way to get into the campus is either going to be on the visitor parking and go to the front of the school, or you come through the hut to get to the back of the school or the parking lot.
But there'd be the same issue there at Mackay as far as if you wanted to go into the administration's office, you're going to have a police officer standing out there all day long to watch people as they come in and out.
Yes.
And the same thing would be, I guess, the same issue
And
with
at,
Nicky
and
Road,
at,
too.
and at Row, where the new location for the new guard shack, you're looking at that on the south
On the south
drive.
side, right.
And everything would be completely closed or shut after the school day starts, and they would have to check in and out with the officer, whether it be anybody leaving the campus or anybody coming in. On the visitors, they would go through the front of the campus and walk into the front office.
Okay. Mr. Trustee Esparza, you have- all right. Trustee Suarez.
Chief, is it possible for you to come up real quick? Chief, if, in your opinion, if we were to go along and support the fencing of this, of these facilities, would you agree that it would make our schools a bit safer?
Absolutely, anything you do. Right now, our campuses are closed campus in theory, but they're really not. With the combination of the fencing and the additional officer, and I think to kind of answer Mr. Esparza's question, it's not that the officer's going to be out front. I know that Dr. Gonzalez and I have talked about possibly a kiosk in the front, different than what we're doing at the elementary schools where you're having that partition. The officer would serve the same purpose. And we already have cameras in strategic locations, so we could put cameras. So we wouldn't be locking the gates in the front, but because we're not currently monitoring it, students are parking across the street, they're parking everywhere but where they should. So in monitoring the front and monitoring any one of the schools, whether it be Rowe, McHigh, and the student parking lots, pretty much everybody comes through there. You're talking about vendors. It's a free-for-all. No one's monitoring it at this point. So by doing that, you'll be able to prevent students from leaving who are not authorized to leave. You would have a list of who's coming, who's going. In the past, we've actually had some success in coming across individuals that had no business being on our campuses and identifying them. But we're not out there all the time, so it's kind of hit and miss. So by doing what was being proposed, fixes the problem. Not only fixes, the safety issues, and it's not that our schools are not safe. They are. They'll be safer, one. And two, on a daily basis, the police department has a program where we run throughout the day, picking kids up at abandoned homes, local restaurants, and so then that's part of identifying them, bringing them back, and then notifying the parents. So that's all part of the attendance piece as well. So we've got a bunch of different pieces that we've had to become very creative as to how we get it done. I think that there's going to be maybe less of us having to chase them down. Now what we're going to find is that maybe they're not getting to school. A lot of times parents will drop them off, and the first thing they do is they walk off. But we have no one there to guide them to the, into the school. So it's a win-win.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah, and
Trustee
I don't have a problem with securing the parking lot and the student. It's just that front area. I mean, it seems like we're going to put fencing there, and basically it's going to stay open. I don't think it'll take long before the kids figure, hey, there's nobody up there in front. The doors are open. Let's just go out that way now. I agree with securing the back area and having somebody out there, because that's where the vehicles drive in, and having an officer monitor who comes in and who's out. It just seems like it'd be great if we could figure out how to put something in the front. But I don't think it'll take long before the kids figure out there's nobody up there. Let's go that route. It's open, Just a thought.
Yeah, and I think that what we're looking at is we're looking at actually putting the officer in an area where if a student does leave through the front, they're going to have to come out through those front doors.
Yeah.
So,
You mentioned a kiosk. What did you mean by a kiosk a minute ago?
it's like if you go to the hospital, you have a little small workstation.
Oh, okay, like an
So
information.
kind of like
desk or something. Okay.
information center,
Okay.
greet location.
Okay.
Mr. Vela, you've been waiting for some
Thank
time,
you.
so you have the floor, trustee.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I think anything we do to improve any kind of security at our campuses is a plus, and I can't say that it's needed at this point, but it's absolutely necessary that we have maximum security on all of our campuses. Before we go into putting stakes in the ground and I hope we really analyze the questions that have been brought up this evening. In other words, are we going to maximize the security by implementing this fencing system? Are we going to minimize disruption? Because that's also an important factor in considering any kind of fencing that we do. Let's really study it. Let's really look at it and see what makes the best option for our campuses going forward. And I have an architectural question, aside from the security question, probably for Mr. Trevino. Black? Can we
That
go
is-
on with a maybe a little bit better aesthetically pleasing?
That is just a sample.
Okay.
We would bring up the options as far as the colors, but that right there is just a sample to illustrate the decorative iron fencing.
Okay.
And color has not even been talked about
Well,
yet.
I understand,
Yeah.
I understand, but I want to be sure that
Yeah.
that it doesn't get overlooked.
Now,
because-
black is the most common one, and it's probably going to be the less expensive one as well, because black is usually readily available and ready to go. Since that type of fencing goes through different processes as far as powder coating, to order it a specific color would probably prolong the lead time on the fencing.
Well, they still have to powder coat it black,
Yeah,
so
but
I'd like to see some kind of maybe an architectural recommendation, if you will,
okay.
for the color that may be most appropriate for each one of the campuses. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Trustee Vela. Trustee Suarez.
I just want to clarify the
Oh,
process
sorry,
then. Is-
Trustee Suarez.
Oh, I'm
He's
sorry.
been very patient.
Oh, you looked at me. I'm sorry, sir.
Don't look at Ito, he'll start talking.
I'm timing you, sir. Go ahead.
There you go. I think a lot has to do with what Mr. Esparza was talking about in the front entrance, and that if, we put up the fence and we don't study it right, as Mr. Vela says, and then we got to make sure we're doing it for the right reasons. And I've driven around some of these campuses, and as I have other campuses in other districts. And if that fence in the entrance is put in, I think that's actually the most important fence. But having two accesses, one in and one out, is what I think that Mr. Esparza is talking about. There's, in some campuses, they only have one entrance, so if you're a parent going in, you go in through that campus, but you also leave through that same exit. Now, I know at 2 o'clock, 2:45, 3 o'clock, when there's a line of parents waiting to pick up their kids, that's not going to work. But throughout the day, it would make sense that if there's two access points to the entrance, that one is closed, so that whoever comes in through one entrance would leave through that same entrance. That would certainly control the flow of people walking through the campus or driving through the campus, which would eliminate, truancy and stuff coming in and out of our campus. And I mean, this is your expertise, but I'm saying I think the front entrance of the campus is probably the most important part. That's it.
Thank you, Trustee Alvarado.
Well, I was going to ask a question about, this is just a report right now, and obviously, Ms. Garcia, when we go out for, you had to bring it back for us to approve the design and all the other stuff, right? Is that, we're just getting a report right now about?
This is a report. It's not subject for action tonight.
That's right.
But there will be actionable items.
Down the road.
And usually on the actionable items, the gist is mainly the objective, the what we want to do, and the second is the cost associated with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but y'all be working together on, all the other stuff. I guess my bottom line for me is this is needed. I can drive into any school right now, not check in, go to the back of row like I've done, walk right into the back, and we just can't do it anymore. And I know parents are not going to be, some parents might not be, they're going to be inconvenienced with this, but for the safety of it, we just need to do this. Because any other school you go to right now, they have a security guard, and they'll ask you, hey, where are you going? You got to go to the front to check in, every single one. And, it's just a reality. You're right, Chief. Our schools, you can drive anywhere right now, and there's kids leaving all the time. I had a senior last year leave, go get breakfast tacos during the day. It just needs to stop. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Trustee Alvarado. Any other questions? Trustee Farin.
Chief, you have the manpower?
It's coming up.
We're going to talk about that.
Coming up.
One of the next items.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think Trustee Vela outlined it, and I think between now and when this item is put back on the agenda for actionable, they do all those aspects plus all the other questions need to be taken into account. In the short term, I always firmly believe in short and long. In the short term, we got to really look at what the parents' situation and moving to pick up and drop off. And so we may have to do a short-term solution to then a longer term that may be more permanent. Something to consider in how we weigh this. going forward. But my biggest fear, and one that as a trustee don't want to get that phone call, is somebody has been taken off of campus and something has happened to that child. And we could have prevented it by putting a secured perimeter and know where these children are. And these parents know that when they drop off their child or they put them on that bus, they're with an adult from the district to and from. And then when they get on that campus and get off that bus, they're on that campus. But to hear these young people, second, third graders, walking off and seeing high school students throughout the day at restaurants or at convenience stores getting a soda pop and chips when they know they should be in class. We all know that. That is a fear I have, that something might happen to one of those children. So I appreciate the administration bringing this to our attention. Thank you for the report. I think we all are looking forward to the recommendation and the action at a later date.
I got one last question.
Yes, sir, Trustee Esparza.
And I'll make it quick. I'm not sure, what is the procedure, and my kids used to go to Memorial, and I would, after I drop them off, I'd see kids, probably kids that get there on a bus or get there dropped off early by their parents. They get dropped off in the parking lot, don't walk into the building, they turn around and go down to the Circle K or whatever it is down there to go buy tacos and stuff and get breakfast. Is there, once they're there, they technically shouldn't be leaving, right?
Correct. As I mentioned, in theory, we're a closed campus, but there's not enough staff or anyone out there to actually direct them back into the building, so they leave. Some cases, they come back, others, they don't.
The bus drop-off at Memorial is on the west, on the east side. So you'd have to have somebody out there too, because they can get off the bus and walk right out those gates. They also have kids dropping off in the front with their parents, so they could get off the car there. And even with the gates, through the opening, they could just walk right out too. Right?
Drop them off in the back, too.
Yeah, or in the back, just because the gates are open during that time. That's my concern. At the big campuses like that, there's so many areas, and it's just hard to monitor it all. With one officer, where are you going to put him? Okay, I'm done.
The key to this is, from a cost, is ADA, and that's a key thing. So if we have students that are dropped off or being brought to campus, and they're gone by that 10 o'clock count, then we're not getting that count. And so if you're looking at roughly 500 students district-wide that potentially are doing this off and on, that you're talking, they'll more than pay for the cost, if cost is an issue here. From the safety ramifications, to me, that's paramount. And while it doesn't address all, it's another step in addition to the patrols that the police department is doing, both MISD and the city police. You all are still patrolling the perimeters. So, and then you got your cameras.
Right.
So, and those are monitored as well from your dispatch location. So this is just another added step, in my mind, anyway. Any other questions or thoughts? Yes, sir, Mr. Green.
And to echo what you just mentioned, the ADA is important, and the return on investment here on this particular fencing project. Our neighbors to the west have an attendance rate of 96.5% at their high schools. Currently, right now, we are at about 93 and 92%. So if you do the math on the attendance that we have at the high schools, that gives you a good perspective on the ADA that we're probably not counting on.
Exactly. Safety is paramount, but if we are doing a cost analysis, that's fair enough. We have to do that. Just the attendance, getting it up to 95, 96%. There you go. Any other thoughts? Yeah, attendance is taken at, 10 o'clock? The second period? 10 o'clock, right? Thank you. No other questions? Then we'll move to 7A4, report regarding the monthly financial and investment report for June 2016.